wisdom to know him. In the wisdom of God, he made it impossible for the wisdom of this world to find God, to be able to recognize God. You cannot, by the wisdom of man, find God. And it was God's wisdom who made the process that way. In other words, no matter how wise you are in this world, it is God's wisdom that keeps you from using wisdom to find him. You need to become a fool if you want salvation, because the preaching of the gospel is foolishness, but it must be believed if you're going to be saved. Which takes me back again to this whole subject of man's free will. Because if man had the free will to come to Christ, that would imply that he has a wisdom that Paul says man does not have. And he says that God, by his wisdom, circumvents the wisdom of man, making it impossible through the wisdom of man to find Christ. So tell me where man's free will brings a man to Christ. It doesn't. Because if you were wise, which is what that would imply, this right here says you can't do it. But the Bible tells us that God has chosen the foolish things of this world to confound the wise. So believers, they're called sheep for a reason. Sheep are the dumbest animals in the animal kingdom. All they know is their master's voice, the shepherd's voice. That is it. And they won't recognize any other voice, and him they will follow. And they follow him blindly. They believe their shepherd will take care of them. They only know their shepherd's voice. They will follow that shepherd wherever he goes. And if one of those sheep goes astray, the shepherd goes after him and brings them back to the fold, losing none. Losing none. So it is by God's wisdom that the wisdom of man amounts to nothing. So think about all these brilliant people that so many of you think are so brilliant in this world. I remember just a couple of weeks ago, it was all over the news about Kanye West, the genius. He has a master plan. He's going to outwit everybody. But it's not just him. We've heard people called, we've seen genius thrown out over the decades, and we've always seen people that we refer to as genius. Now rappers are geniuses. Now people who have a lot of followers are geniuses. People that just have money for the sake of having money, or fame for the sake of having fame, they're geniuses. If a person has power that they stumbled into, it's because they're a genius. Everyone is a genius. God says that he will bring the wisdom of this world to nothing. To nothing. To nothing. All you need to do is submit to Christ. Submit to him. No basketball player or athlete is going to save you. No rapper, God knows, no rapper is going to save you. And I don't know where they become what they are. No actor or celebrity is going to save you. None of these people are going to save you. Money is not going to save you. Only the gospel of Jesus Christ believed will save you, because it is the power that God uses to bring people to faith. Paul says, verse 21, continuing, it pleased God through the foolishness of the preached message to save those who believe. One brother here says, how can they hear unless they are sent? Who has believed our report? Somebody must go to preach in order for somebody to be saved. Now, Christians, all of you here who may be listening, don't shut down on me. Let me finish this thought here. A lot of people come to me and argue with me all the time, on a daily basis, pretty much. Whenever I talk about predestination and God's election and God chooses those who are saved, it always comes up. If God has predestined people to salvation, if God has chosen people to salvation, then why do we have to preach? Why do we preach? The answer is right here in these verses that I'm reading to you right now. These are the answers. Why do we preach to those who are chosen? As I've said before, the number one reason why we preach to the elect, even though we know God has chosen and predestined, we preach, number one, and there are three reasons. One, because we were told to. Simple as that. We were told to. We were commanded to. Commanded. Number two, the second reason why we preach the gospel to those whom God has already chosen to be saved is because we don't know who they are. We don't know. God knows, but we don't know. So we are commanded to preach indiscriminately to all, because there are no identifying marks on anyone, including race or bloodline, that tells us who the elect people are. Now, if God has chosen his people, which he has, this is plain. Somebody says, we are not chosen. You might not be, but God's people are. So, God chooses his people, but he didn't tell us who they are. If God were choosing people based on race or bloodline or nationality, which he is not, if he were doing that, then we would all know who the chosen people were. And yet you have so many Christians saying, well, God only chose the Jews. God is not, and will tell me that I am preaching false teaching, false truth, if I say that God chose people like he said he did. But yet they have no problem saying that God did choose Israel.